Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Woods. I'm the Director of Student Support Services for Henry County Public Schools. And today I want to share with you 3 tips that I highly recommend for engagement and differentiation in this virtual setting, right? So tip number 1, take advantage of the instantaneous feedback. A lot of us are using or utilizing, different learning platforms at this time. It can be things like Canvas, Edmodo, Moodle, etc. This is an opportunity that you can use to engage and give very timely and explicit feedback back to your students. Now, obviously, due to Wi-Fi connectivity, some of your students might not be able to log in meeting sessions with you at the time that you're trying to set it up, but that's okay. And what I mean by that is if you, for example, post an assignment and you ask for students to write their opinions back on it, almost like a blog post. Well, when a child is able to do it, it might be a day or two later. Whenever you have a chance to give that feedback goes back to that student immediately. For a lot of us in school, taking it way back, old school, when things were still with, paper and pencil, even if we had done the same type of assignment and turned it in, there would still be a lag in the teacher going through the papers, putting that feedback on there, and then, having to pass it out a few days later or later in the week and so forth. But now with technology, as you're sending that feedback is actually going back quicker to the student compared to in the past. So that's one tip that you should really take advantage of during this time period, right? Tip number 2, reassess your students. Due to this virtual setting, this environment, and for many of us, it's a very fluid situation, going from hybrid to completely virtual, back and forth and so forth due to the pandemic. You have to constantly reassess your students. And what do I mean by that? Some students, as we know, are really struggling with this chaotic structure, and they're really trying to figure out what works for them. Some students, however, that we're finding, they're benefiting from a virtual setting. They're benefiting from a lot of this flexibility that they're being given. So it's very important that during these different intervals and different checks that you are constantly checking in with your students. You're seeing what works for them, what's not working for them, and then you're able to really differentiate based on their needs. And as I'm talking about the needs, obviously a lot of that is bleeding over into when we talk about social emotional learning, right? Because as we're reassessing our students, it's really coming down to not only their learning styles, but also what they feel comfortable doing in different settings based on where they might be during the day due to a lot of this uncertainty, right? Because of the structure. That takes me now to tip number 3. I call it the 5-second rule. And what I mean by that is as we're sending out different assignments to our students, as we're having different forms of communication, it is very, very important that as they get that information, but then also taking it a step further, as the parents are getting that information and the guardians and the folks, that are watching these children during the day, they are able to understand and digest what it is we're sending and what it is we need the child to do. Because now more than ever, a lot of our parents, our grandparents, different daycare workers, whoever is being in charge of students during the day, a lot of them are really having to help children navigate a lot of these technology spaces and platforms that we're utilizing and sending information to, but then also assisting the teacher in that moment in how that explanation of that work is going. So that's why I call that the 5-second rule. It needs to be really right to the point. It needs to be something that even some folks who aren't the most tech savvy or who might not be the best math person out there or history person or science or so forth, they're able to take away just enough to help re-explain and reiterate the expectations to the students. Because as we know, that's the most important thing. If students can digest what we're saying to them, and then if the parents or the guardians are able to take the information that we're sending them and at least just help relay that to the child, that will reinforce those learning targets. That will reinforce the need to do that assignment. That will also in turn reinforce, if they're still not able to do it, that then they'll reach out to us for more assistance. All right. So those are my top 3 tips for engaging and differentiating with your students in the virtual setting. I appreciate being on here with you, sharing those tips. Like I said, for all of you, everybody out there, all the educators across Virginia, you're doing amazing work. This is crazy times for all of us, but we all have to keep encouraging each other and lifting each other up. Thank you.